with life. It's so precious and it's so delicate.
Love. Without love, you don't have either of the other two.
The leadership stance that you take in your life, though, I think is directly correlated to the amount of love you have in your life.
What's up, guys? Hey, listen, welcome back to the L3 Perspective, Life, Love, Leadership. Super excited to reconnect with Cam. Cam's been traveling the world the last 7-8 days. But anyway, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. And Cam, what you got, brother? What you got?
What's up, y'all? As we tap in, remember, like, love, share, comment, message us. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you guys don't like. At the end of the day, the whole reason that we do all this is honestly for you guys, and so letting us know what you want us to talk about, or honestly which conversations you've enjoyed the most, really help us. Like when I talk to people, they'll be like, hey, I really enjoyed this part not so much, stuff like that. Or if you have guests who you'd like us to contact and reach out to and bring them on, that will help tremendously too. But anyways, as we start, what's up, dog? We haven't talked in so long. I feel like we've talked, but it's not
yeah. I think the last 7 days, since we've reconnected over a year ago, we've probably talked the least this week.
Facts.
I mean, we've talked every day, but just the length within the actual day. But it's all good, man. I know we're both grinding, collaborating, and executing dreams, man. So it's a beautiful thing.
It better, man. It better come to light. You know what I'm saying? No, it's busy, man. I just came back from Utah. So that was cool. That was bucket list. I've always wanted to go to. I've always heard nice things about Utah. The altitude that it'll get you, man. Just like Colorado. Yeah. So I went on a hike with a buddy of mine, and I was just like, man, I'm kind of tired right now. And he's like, I was like, what's the elevation here? He's like, oh, it's like 6,000-7,000. I was like, yeah. I came from an elevation of 6 feet. That's what Fairfield is, right?
I did.
It's like 6 feet. That's our elevation. We're taller. We're about as tall as me. That's right. Rico's taller than the elevation.
That's crazy. Yeah,
and so it was cool, man. But I think one of the biggest things when I like visiting around is I don't get out as much as I want to. I think we've talked about this is being afforded the opportunity to kind of control your schedule, work from home, things like that. That's a blessing and a curse, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
What's that?
No. I agree wholeheartedly. I think, my first year just kind of working from home, I was like, oh, this is dope. You know what I mean? I get to be present with the family, blah, blah, blah. But I'm in a space now where I'm like, hey, I think I want to counterbalance that out. You know what I mean? It is nice to be able to make the own schedule, be at the crib, but right, I want to make sure that I'm just as productive. So, and I know that there are some distractions at the house, positive distractions.
Yeah.
But
at least I usually teach people to be listening to positive distractions, baby. I love you, girl. You know what? Honestly, it's an ambiance thing.
Yeah.
Cause I was thinking about that too. Is so take summer out of it, because when the kids are in school, I still feel as though I am. It's weird. It's when you're forced to go to the office, you're like, I don't want to go to this office. And then now that you don't have to go, you're like, I kind of want to go to a space that is meant to do business and be productive and wheel and deal and things like that. And so I have found that, because at the house there's distractions as far as I'm not going to call them positive distractions. I'll just be like, because I see dishes and I'm like, I got to clean these dishes, or I see a spot on the floor and I'm like, oh, I'm going to clean. And it's you don't have to do that in the middle of my workday, but I got OCD, so I can't just let that sit. And so, Net, I think I was telling you, she went to she saw one of those work buildings that were you rent the space for a certain amount of time. You can do it for a day, or you can do it for a month. You can have a private space, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, wow. I knew those were a thing, but I didn't realize they were really a thing, to the point where they're even in Fairfield, because, we're last to get everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm surprised they opened a Cane's so dang close.
Well, yeah. I mean, Canes is in Vacaville, so I'm not surprised.
But it's like
Not
next to
kidding.
it. So I know you're not from here originally. So like this area growing up was a place you just drove by.
I've heard that.
You just drove by it. I never stopped in Vacaville or Fairfield
Right.
most of my life when I lived in California. If we did stop here, I probably didn't realize it. But this was not a place that you stopped. Like it was the pass by for gas between Sacramento and then the Bay Area.
Ah, I got you. Okay. I got you. I got you.
So it's
That's true.
interesting.
I mean, so even speaking of that, like Tegan just the other day went to go look at some land, right? And
Yeah.
so the reason why I bring that up is because here, just a decade or so ago, people used to just drive through this area. Now, they're building up so much
Yep.
development, like housing development, and here we are looking at land to potentially,
Yep.
invest in to kind of build on top of it.
Yep.
And like you wouldn't even. I'm sure the picture of what it looked like a decade ago and what it looks like now is completely opposite.
Oh, for sure. I think about that even like with the mountain house. I'm like, man, I wish I could see the development of this whole area and what it looked like.
Yeah.
So I even found out this past weekend, like the neighbor behind us, like I told you, they have that pool and stuff like that. I had assumed that the current owner had built that. Well, I met one of my other neighbors this weekend and she gave me even more kind of background. She's like, no, all that was done prior. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I was just like, man, that was a come up, boy. Because to do that in the mountains of all places, like, this ain't city. This is not level land. Like,
Right.
that's an undertaking to say the least to do that
Sure.
on that type of property. And so, but that's like that vision thing, right? Like you just have to have the vision and then obviously a little bit of money,
But
or know people. And so no, same, yeah. So Vacaville kind of, I agree, is like originally this was just a pass by place, but now it's, this area, there are opportunities here because the growth of it was a little bit slower probably than like the surrounding areas. So now is a time where you could potentially like get into it.
for sure.
But you also gotta have kind of that like gusto to be able to make moves like that.
For
Things
sure.
can be really scary to a lot of people. Like
Yeah.
when we bought the house in the mountains, I mean, there were people who were like, why would you buy a house if you're not going to live in it full time? And it's kind of messed up. But at that point, I was like, I just can't talk to you about this anymore. Like, we're cool. I
Yeah.
love you, but as far as like investments and things like that, I've now realized that this is no longer a conversation that
Yeah.
you could be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. There's been times where folks would be like, why'd you make that decision? Or like, because there are times where if I feel something, like if I like
Yeah.
really feel, just kind of going off the intuition, if I feel like things are a right move to make, I'll make it without like putting so much thought into it and talking myself out of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've won more times than not in doing that, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I've been able to kind of trust my intuition and not just from like, oh, this is an emotional feeling. I think I want to go and invest in this or go do this, but
Yeah.
really like that deep rooted feeling. And like I said, it's been more wins than not. It's worked for me, so I feel like I'm gonna keep doing it. Now, with that also being said, I
Here's
do,
real quick.
yeah, I do also understand like there will require times where I cannot just go off of that intuition.
For
right?
sure.
So-
Yeah.
but again, that goes back to why I believe having great people in your circle where you can be like, yo, I just have this feeling, this thought. Let me share
Yeah.
this information with it. What do you like? What do you think? So
No, for sure. And it's like, and there's a balance between people who will give you like honesty about the situation and then
Sure.
those who are like, just bring it down. I keep
Yeah.
note of that. Like I gotta have a tally like in my mind. Like when I tell somebody a crazy idea, like the first time they're like, nah, man, but all right, cool, bet. And then I'm just
Yeah.
like, all right, tally one. And then I like tell them another one. And and I don't ever say anything that hasn't been somewhat thought through. Like I'm not out here just like slinging ideas to the side like
no, I got
like
you.
like a movie, right? And so I'm like, all right, but if you cut down like 3 of the ideas, at that point I'm like, all right, never mind. It's not that you're being honest, it's just that you don't have a vision.
Right.
And I can't like, I've had many conversations with some people lately where, they have ideas and I'm like, oh cool, bet like if you did this, and this, and they're like, oh wow, like you're one of the first people to not like literally come up with anything that I couldn't do in this entire scenario. And I'm like, because I'm not, that's just not how my mind works.
For sure.
There's a will, there a way. I'm
Yeah.
sure people look at computers now and they're like, there's no way. I
Yeah.
remember when the Walkman with the CD that had the 10-second anti-skip, like that was
Right.
a
Yeah.
modern
That
marvel,
was
boy.
big.
You was like, hey, I can
Yeah.
I can jog a whole 10 steps and my song won't skip.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. That vision is powerful. Uh, I think on one of the last training calls that actually I happened to miss in the agency, they were talking about limiting beliefs, right?
Yep.
And you just kind of tying that into lack of vision. And like not even an hour ago, I was talking to Darren about something very, very similar as well, man. And it's so that belief, man, or the lack of will have you go left or go right, and one of those left or rights or a dead end to the end of the road. So
Yeah. And that was something that was a, conversation that was brought up while I was on my trip too, is that, I talked to some people, and like one of the things that really came up was like kind of believing in like what you deserve, right? So like we've talked about many a times, it's like, I'm divorced somewhat recently, also married somewhat recently. And so like, but that came from kind of knowing what I was worth and what was going to make me happy. And there were some like honesties that had to come through that, right? Like, honesties that I have no problem telling anybody. Anybody who's talked to me knows like I'm full with the situation as far as how everything went down. And, one of the things was I got married really young. And with that piece of getting married really young, part of that realization I had to come to was that ultimately a lot of that was probably that I didn't want to be alone.
yeah,
Being super young, I was in the military. I left home for the first time because I came back, and then so when I was leaving, all those things. And I say all that because, when I did get divorced, I was 11 years into a marriage.
right,
So it would, and I didn't know anything else. I didn't think anything else as far as like what could have been, should have been, whatever, until I don't know what happened one day. Like I just started like looking at it and I was like, hold up. Like, I just don't feel like this is working the way it should for both parties, honestly.
for sure.
It wasn't even just a me thing. It was a we thing. And, and I was really honest about it. Like, hey, you know what? Like, I can tell, you can tell, I can see you, you can see me. Someone's
Yeah.
watching me, someone's watching. So,
Yeah.
but I say all that to be that, leaving that situation was really hard. And there was a lot of belief in myself that I had to have in doing that, I like being with somebody. Some people are like, oh, whatever, you don't need anybody. We're human beings. Human beings are, unfortunately, that's just how we're built in DNA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
leaving that situation, I had to have like faith and belief that as long as I stayed true to myself and my, newfound kind of dealings,
Yeah.
that person would come along to fill that space.
Yeah,
You know?
I think some of that comes along too with being like sitting with yourself, right? And
Hella sitting with
talked about
yourself.
this before,
Yep.
but just being able to be in that space where you're like, okay, cool, I know what value I bring,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe you don't really get that. You don't get to that point unless you're actually learning about yourself. It's almost like
Facts.
learning a new job, learning a skill set, like
Yep.
being able to put that time, energy, and effort into yourself, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can. While we are design,
Yeah.
and partnerships or collaborations, I think that there's also still you can't you can't partner with someone
Mm-hmm.
and just keep bringing the same baggage, right?
Yeah.
And you not even know what's in your bag, right?
For
You
sure.
haven't identified what's in your
I
bag.
ain't looked in here in a little bit.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, that's just being able to again identify yourself so that you can be comfortable at the tables that you're sitting in, right, or the relationships that you're in.
Yeah. Well, you learn what works and what doesn't, and I say all that because I having conversations with some people during my trip, that was something that was said is like, oh man, like you, because it's like you almost, not almost, like you're giving me hope that things can work out.
Right.
Because and one of the crazy thing is that people were like, man, you don't realize how many other people are going through these same scenarios or have done it
Yeah.
until you're like open and honest with it. And then you realize that, no one's perfect and no relationship's perfect. And that's the thing is like, is divorce great? Of course not. It sucks, especially if you have children. It can affect them wholeheartedly. But at the same time, like, we always talk about how you really don't get to like the wins unless you take the L's.
Right.
And it's like, but we take like certain things out of it as if like they're null and void.
Right.
Like, no, bro, like that's a part of life too. Is like,
Yeah,
you
be
can
honest
take
with yourself.
you can take the L in a marriage or relationship, but then get out on the other side completely intact and really happy because of all the things you learned during that time. Now, is it emotionally taxing? Of course. But at the end of the day, like, you don't learn what you need or want or what you're willing to take until you've either seen it or you haven't seen it.
Right.
Like when people ask, like, hey, what do you like? You're like, I don't know. All right. What do you not like then?
Right,
Oh, well,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like this or I don't like that. Like, okay, well, that it's all helpful no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Learning how to ask the right questions.
And then, like, I think you're right. Just sitting with yourself.
Man, bro, that is especially today because of how noisy the world is, man. Like just having the time. I had a conversation on Saturday with one of my guys, man, and I was just like, I had to remind myself that I need to make sure that I'm consistent with that.
Yeah.
Right? Just being able to have that quiet time, to be still, and so because I know that's when I'm operating at my best. That's when I know, and so I had to be intentional with creating time yesterday, where I was just like, okay, all right, G, I need you to get back centered. What are the things that keeps you anchored? Et cetera, and then all right, get back after it. And so sometimes you just got to hit that reset button.
Yeah.
So
In case you guys don't know what Center's G, it's chai tea.
Trader Joe's.
It's really not that complicated. 15 minutes of quiet time, chai tea, right as rain.
We're good. You don't have to spend 66 minutes with yourself.
Man, so I get acupuncture, and that's like one of the things is that people ask me, it's like, oh, does it help? And it helps, obviously, like pins in it. But honestly, one of the biggest things that it helps with is I get like an hour of just straight quiet. There's nothing else. It's like, like literally she pokes me and then she turns off the lights and she says, all right, cool. See you in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And we do that, 2 or 3 times over. And I was telling Ned about that as I was like, yeah, my acupuncture, she like sticks me and then she's gone. Like she doesn't linger and talk. Now, me, I always love some conversation.
Right.
But as far as like the quiet time, that's
sure.
one of the only times where there is literally nothing else for me to pay attention to. Like I went in there tired as a dog, and granted, I caught a couple Z's, so that's probably why I feel a little more refreshed. But at the same time, it also was an opportunity for my brain to turn off.
For sure.
And I think too many times we get caught up in this. You always supposed to be doing something, and you slacking or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, bro, like the people that say that shit. The people who are like single, or like all they have is like a partner, or or it's when you got 5 kids in your house, that is just rough.
Yeah.
I ain't got no problem
I
saying
feel
it.
you.
I know you feel me.
Yeah.
And I know we have that conversation too, right? Is I think if there's any advice I can give people, sometimes it's like take advice from people who are in your situation. Or somewhat in your situation, or have gotten out of it,
experienced it.
or experienced it, right? Like maybe they're not in it right now, but like they understand it. Like like I may take like technical advice from somebody who's like single, whatever, but like you're not gonna give me life advice for the most part. And that may be ignorant, but like I'm gonna just keep it 100. Like
I feel you.
just like honestly, I'm not gonna give somebody dating advice in 2023. I haven't dated in 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like out there. I think I told Net that, like, when we were already friends, luckily, when everything happened. But like, I remember she asked me that. She's like, hey, if you want to go like date, like I understand, like, blah, blah. And I was like, bruh, have you seen the jungle it is out there right now? There's like 13 different apps. You
Yeah.
know, people want me to pay for dinner, and I'm like, I'm cheap as hell. I got kids, so then I got to decide when do you meet my kids.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's a whole psychological game.
I'm all it takes is one Instagram message, and I'm fighting with somebody. Like I'm cool, dog. I digress
We
from
may
this.
have to do an episode on that. Do you feel like do people feel that it's harder to date now than it was yesterday? But we'll save that for another conversation.
We're
And
gonna have
then
to.
tie in life, love, and leadership, how you navigate through all three of those pieces within that topic.
Facts. You know, the one thing I'll say, not go too far, is like me and Ned had a funny conversation on the deck this morning because we were just like, oh, you know, it's so nice to be in the mountains. Like that city life is like, you know, BS, whatever. And I'm like, well, realistically, city life is for when you're like trying to kind of like meet your mate. Cause like you ain't gonna meet him out here in the mountains. What you going?
Right.
You gonna walk down the I-93 and hopefully you run into a woman that's attractive and like
Right.
you want to mate.
Right.
No, you got to go to where all the people are congregated. Then once you like are ready to lock down, then you can move to more of a secluded place.
Hey, Cam just gave y'all some life and love advice.
Just saying, dog.
Nah,
But yeah, man. I mean, you know, as we wrap up, like, what you got, G?
bro, like I'm gonna tap into mine on the next one. I will say this: I had the opportunity to go back on base and speak. Actually, I was there for 2 days. The first day I actually taught a leadership development course that you and I kind of pieced together, right?
Yeah.
And so
I'm so sad I couldn't be there.
It's all good. We're gonna have plenty of opportunities. But that was a great experience, man. And then other than that, the next day came and did a financial workshop, and so that was, I think, enlightening for a lot of our uniform wearers, man. And they're welcoming us back, so I'm excited about that. But,
Yeah.
you
Was
know,
it to feel good to get back in there?
It does, man. It does. I love it. I mean, I just love connecting with people. So, I wanna make sure I be consistent with that. So just because I hung up the uniform, I'm not gonna forget where I came from.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I just thought about too is funny is that we both talk with our hands when
Yeah.
we do presentations.
yeah, yeah. But not in a distracting way. Like I kind of study people of like
Yeah.
when and some people
Oh yeah, they'd be like,
super robotic and everything. But no, man. But any final thoughts as we wrap this one up, man? As we get ready to execute this one and execute into something else.
I know, man. It's a good. I think the biggest thing, man, is like belief in that it's gonna be okay.
Yes.
That can be really, really hard to understand some days.
Yeah.
We all been through it. We know no one's perfect. And no situation's ever been perfect. And I think it's nice to hear sometimes like, hey, bro, like it'll work out. It might be sucky for a little while, but it will work out.
For sure. Absolutely. But you got to put the work in.
But you got to put the work in, and you have to believe it's going to work out. Like the energy you put into the universe, that's what you're going to get back. So if all you talking about is this sucks and it's never going to get better and da-da-da-da, then it's not going to.
100%. That was a video Darren and I just did. It was on belief, man. And one thing I'll say, if any of our viewers that are watching or any of our listeners, if you are dealing with the lack of belief, try writing this down, 10 times a day or 10 times, and you can spread it out morning, afternoon, and evening. Is I believe, I believe, I believe, and whatever that blank is, you fill it in. But with that being said, Cam, it's always good rocking with you, brother.
Yep. Hey, don't y'all forget, subscribe, like, love, leadership. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, share it. Share it with 5 people. I know some of you, if you watch our other things, it's something that Rico always says. Share it with 5 people, hook us up. But other than that, we'll see y'all next week. We appreciate you rocking with us. See y'all later.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
With life, it's so precious and it's so delicate.
Love. Without love, you don't have either of the other two.
The leadership stance that you take in your life, though, I think is directly correlated to the amount of love you have in your life.